Hi, everyone. Ruthie Berber here. I'm a community builder and leader, and I'm currently volunteering for Led by Community as the New York chapter director. And I'm super excited to be hosting this panel all about strategies for building community from the ground up. So we only have 20 minutes, so let's jump right in, meet our panelists, Ritu, Vera, Remco, and Sarah, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
So excited to be here. I'm going to pick on you and you'll just start in the circle. So Ritu, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the community space.
Hey, thanks, Ruthie. Hey, everybody. So glad to be here. Gonna keep it really brief because we have 20 minutes and we have lots to talk about. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining in at the summit and listening in to us. I am Ritu Mittal. I am from the Indian subcontinent. Two-time founder, been building communities for close to a decade now. Like most of us would say, it was an accidental step into the community world. But if I were to connect the dots, I think largely what has always been at the background of all my work has been user engagements. And when you sort of step back and look at community building, it's all about engaging your users, your members, your audience sets. So that's my little story about how I got into communities.
Awesome. Vera, why don't you continue?
Hello, I'm Vera DeVera. I'm the head of community at Watershed, which is an enterprise climate platform. And I've been in community for about a decade as well. Started my career at San Francisco Opera. And my customer obsession kind of like grew from there. And I've moved it into B2B SaaS in the last 5 years has been my focus in building communities from 0 to 1 for companies like Ironclad, Veredo, and now Watershed.
Amazing. And Sarah?
Yeah, hey Ruthie. I'm Sarah. I work as the head of community at Muse, and Muse provides cloud-based software to the hospitality industry. And like Ritu, my community career was accidental. It found me, as many community folk can probably attest to. I've always enjoyed connecting with people. It gives me energy, and I don't like working in isolation. And I was given a great opportunity a few years ago when I was working at Unilever to start a community, and have since gone on to launch another 2 customer communities. So I've had lots of practice starting things from zero.
Amazing, truly. And last but not least, Remco.
Hi everyone. I'm Remco. I'm with Gainsight right now, but my community career actually got started at Insighted, which was a community software vendor, I think in 2019 maybe or something. And then 2.5 years ago, we sold the company to Gainsight. So now I'm still involved in communities, just the name's a little bit different. And I actually know most of the panel here. There's a lot of community talent on this panel, so I'm quite excited for the discussion. It's going to be good.
Fantastic. All right, so let's dive in. I think we should just start with the basics. Like, where should you start when you're building a community from the ground up? And does that change, based on the type of community you're building, community type, B2B, etc.? And Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. And it can seem overwhelming. Building a community from scratch feels like there's a lot to do. But the place that I've started before, which has proven to be very effective, is talking to customers, talking to your audience, speaking to as many of them as you can. The last community I launched, I spoke to 50 customers in the lead up to the launch, and I created a set of questions. And I used those questions in each conversation. So I had a standard set of answers that gave me some really great insights. And I asked each of them to support the community. So I had a really strong group of ambassadors. It felt like I'd been on like 50 first dates by the end of all of these meetings. But it was really valuable. And it probably, I had a whole smorgasbord of things that I wanted to deliver, but you don't want to be that person arriving at a banquet with meatballs when everyone's a vegetarian. So this will help you to discover what's important and what's not important. But this group really helped me to deliver content for the launch and make it look like the party had already started, and nobody wants to be the first one to arrive at a party, right? So yeah, when you also some extra bonus points when you casually drop into conversation with your internal stakeholders that you've chatted with 50 customers, suddenly you're not just a colleague, you are a community whisperer, and you will instantly earn their trust and some serious kudos. So that's definitely a tip from me.
Couldn't agree more. I also spent, I think, also 50 customers interviewing when we were building the Yotpo community, so I really identify. Vera, why don't you continue?
I did the same thing. I just started at Watershed last May, actually. It's like the third one the second one I started in less than a year. And so I did similarly. I did a listening tour, but I did it both internally and externally. So I wanted to understand, get an understanding of what the internal stakeholders understood the community to stand for, and then also talked with with our customers to understand what they were looking for, especially their pain points. And it was like what Sarah said, it was like a 50 first dates, and it was great. And I basically saw like where all the commonalities were, and there were a lot of themes that emerged, and from those themes, I started building the strategy from that, so that I could present that to the internal team and say, hey, this is what customers are saying, as opposed to like what maybe you thought in your head of what your expectations were around the community. So I wanted to get that, internal alignment, and also assure that our customers, because I'm building a practitioner community within our customer base, that, we would be supporting them in what they needed. And really, it's all about helping them do their best job, at least in the community that I'm building. I've built with SaaS, B2B SaaS communities. So that's my take on it.
So critical, so critical. Ritu, what about you?
Sure. I think, I totally agree with what Veera and Sarah have spoken about in terms of where do we start. But I think the one place where I've always found myself starting off in all the three communities that I built out, whether it was health tech, fintech, or ed tech, was uh, really trying to understand from a business lens, what business problem statement are we going to solve by building out this community? Because unfortunately, in the recent times, communities become this buzzword where everybody wants to build a community, right? And eventually, communities do require a lot of investment from the perspective of resources, time, money, manpower, the bandwidth from the entire larger team, whether it's engineering, product, marketing, right? So I think for me, the way I approach starting ground up is what business problem statement am I going to solve for by building the community? What KPIs am I going to move? And then, of course, speak to users. And the idea is to align both of them and say, hey, this is the reason why we want to build the community. And once we build it, this is what we're going to be doing. It's not the how, it's the why and the what, because you don't want to build a community and have a ghost town at any point of time. So for me, it's the business goals, the users' goals, the why and the what. This sort of matrix really becomes the ground for, how do I start a community?
100%. And Remco, obviously you're coming from a bit of a different perspective here, so I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. Where do you start?
Yeah, so actually,
yes.
Yeah, true. So I actually have a pretty similar perspective on these things. So I definitely think you need to be clear on both the customer side and basically the audience that you want to participate and what they are trying to get out of it, so that you can play into that, because otherwise you're gonna have a non-engaged community from the start, which is not a great starting point, especially if you're trying to sell it to the rest of your internal stakeholders. And you definitely need to be clear on the business value and prospectus also to the rest of the company, because otherwise people are just not going to spend the time that you need them to. So I fully agree. I won't add anything to that, because then I'll just be repeating what others have said so well already. So I'll just add one more thing, which is definitely also look what's out there for your customers already that might be solving some of their problems, or let's say talking points, or peer-to-peer sort of talking points that they're or conversations that they're having already, and see what you can still add to that conversation, or if you should choose to participate in that conversation where they're already having them. Basically make sure that you also know what's out there and the landscape that's out there.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Right, so to switch it up a little, Let's talk about, what are some of the blockers that you can come across? Because obviously we all know it's not a smooth ride when you're trying to build a community, definitely not from the ground up. But Ritu, maybe you can share maybe an example of like a past experience where you had a blocker on that building journey and how you faced it.
That's a tricky one, honestly. But let me pick up from my experience with building out India's first fintech community exclusively for women. So money and women sort of don't really go hand in hand together. And for a fintech to own up a community-led approach, we were starting from ground up. And obviously, how do you get the word out? How do you get your ideal customer profile? The acquisition was essentially the blocker. And I think one of the routes that we opted in for was partnerships. The idea was try and find larger networks, forums, communities, or brands we could associate, partner up with, wherein we were very clear we were able to provide value. It's not just about getting web traffic from those particular partnerships, right? The intent was to create a lot of value, create awareness, um, get a lot of brand recognition in place for sure. But very surprisingly, while we got some amazing feedback from there, we got a lot of our early members from there. What also happened is it became a revenue channel for us, which we were not expecting. So that was like a big win for us. I distinctly remember one of these partnerships overnight gave us close to 5,000 members, literally in 24 hours. It was just perfect. So that's when we realized that good partnerships can really be, the problem solvers for you when you're starting off very early. So yeah.
Fantastic. Anyone else want to jump in, or shall we talk about tech stack?
Yeah, sure. I think one final thing, what I always think when I look at the B2B perspective, and especially SaaS businesses building out communities, it's actually like people always have this feeling that it's resources and content and all these things that might be blocking you. And these are definitely difficult. So I'm not saying that they're easy, but I actually think that the biggest blocker for building out B2B communities is expectations. So expectations from people that are getting them started. I think most companies, when they do this, they expect 50% of their customer base to be engaged tomorrow, which just never happens. And then people are actually disappointed when that doesn't happen, which then puts a strain on the people that are running the community and are leading the program and trying to get things done. So I think the biggest blocker that I've seen, definitely expectations, not being clear about them. And and I think, this is one thing that we need to be mindful of and actually proactively work towards.
We have definitely all been there. I was like, what? We don't have 90% penetration rate of all of the customer base? They don't love it? They don't want to just jump in right now? That's crazy. You haven't been running it for 3 weeks. Where is it? Anyways, I think also, we can't talk about building without talking about tech stack and tooling. And I think, we have such an incredible array of expertise here. I would love if we could share with the audience, something about tech stack, what they should be keeping in mind when they're using their tooling and tech. And obviously, Remco, you're going last here. But Vera, why don't you start?
I remember Remco giving me a demo actually inside 2 years ago, so it's awesome. But this is a great segue. I think we have aligning expectations is super important. I think that's why that roadshow is critical. But as I mentioned, because you want to understand, like, what do people care about and where do they live, if you will? Like, what's their natural habitat? My first community that I built was for lawyers, and they loved reading. They love long form. Like, they just loved all that, lengthy blogs. And I was like, really? But that just kind of broke my, my assumptions that we needed to send out shorter emails for our newsletter. They were actually consuming it all the way through. Whereas now I'm working with sustainability professionals who don't have time, and they're really limited their resources and their attention. And so I have to grab it in ways that is different, which means more in person, one to few kind of interactions. And so I employ like an NV, I call it the MVC, minimum viable community kind of mindset, kind of like the minimum viable product. A concept is that, you should really start with something that's where you can be really agile and adept, or able to navigate through, what is working and not. So I usually start with like a 90-day plan, getting the lay of the land in that first 30, 45 days, drafting the strategy and then like actually executing and kind of pressure testing what I think will work. So for example, in the watershed community, I heard a lot like, I don't want to be in a Slack right away. And I was like surprised by that. I thought they would want to do that. They're like, no, we want to be connecting, in small groups offline. And I was like, all right, then I will start curating kind of these small meetups for you. And that informed me of what I needed to do to like, how do I gather people in that way? And that's where I started valuing the types of tool set that I would need. So like, I don't need the big platform right now. I obviously want it later on as we grow and scale, but what do I need for the first quarter, 2 quarters to get through and get people talking? Because that's going to start building that ritual of getting to meet up and getting familiar with each other. Because right now they're all isolated. They're all kind of feeling like disconnected, and I want them to connect. So what are the tools that are going to enable me to do that? And so I feel like sometimes as community builders, we're all about like creating the perfect environment, but it's all really about serendipity and getting those sparks to fly, and just getting people in a room sometimes just really is where the magic happens. And so keep it simple, be nimble. And, sometimes we say, perfection is the enemy of good. So just do it. I made the mistake the first time I did it. I waited too long. And so I would report that with everybody here.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Sarah, what do you suggest?
Yeah, Vera, absolutely, perfection is the enemy of good. I totally get that. But to your point about being agile and adapt, in terms of the tech stack, I mean, from my perspective, in the community that I've recently built that's now only 11 months old, when I joined my company, we were very much down the road with a particular platform that we were going to launch our community on. And the more I was researching this particular platform, the more unsure I was becoming, because it just meant that I was not going to be able to be agile as a community manager and be able to configure the things I needed and be able to quickly move when I needed to, because that's the beauty of working in community. You can just switch over. You can try something, it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You switch over and you change things. And having this platform that was going to be very rigid really, really concerned me. So at the 11th hour, we were very close to signing. I kind of started reviewing other platforms and went down another route and kind of put together a business case, offered it to my CEO. He got on the call with the CEO of this other company that I proposed. They had a chat about the strategy and the long-term roadmap and the vision that we were trying to achieve. And there was a real connection there. And I was so relieved and happy, because this company, it really did talk to what we were trying to achieve with the community. So we've gone down that road. Things were signed. It was all good. We did kind of waste a bit of time and resource and money in the process, but thank God we did it, because it's really led to some a great, really strong partnership. So I would encourage everybody to take time and be confident in the tech that you are selecting, because it's very important.
That cannot be understated, truly.
Yeah.
Ritu, what about you?
Wow. So I think, the way I approach the tech stack and the tooling bit is typically two filters. How best can my members experience the value that we're creating for them? How best can they connect with each other? And so that's filter one. And my second filter is typically how friction free is onboarding, joining, and continuing to use, because I can get best of the tools, apps being made in house or white label them, right? But people don't want to keep downloading, apps. It's not a habit for them to continuously come back just for my use case. So for me, these two filters really are important. Post this particular filters being answered, I definitely do get into a conversation with my tech and my product teams and trying to figure out the easier, scrappier ways to do that before we start building out habits. Uh, at the end of the day, wherever my members are most comfortable is where I would want to build out the community, because I do strongly believe community experiences have to be omni-channel, right? So people will choose to connect at one place, but they will disperse eventually. So I think I'm not that hung on the tech stack and the tool bit. As long as it just makes it easy for me to understand and know what my members are doing, I can look at the journeys and I know when to sort of keep in, pulling them up and saying, "Hey, where have you been?" So I think that's my approach to the tech stack and the tooling bit.
Okay, love that. Remco, I'm going to assume that you're going to say go with Gainsight. And since we only have a few minutes,
No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be boring. Actually, I'll just give one tip,
okay.
and it's not related to Gainsight at all. I think your users being able to use whatever platform you choose and really like it is probably one of the most important things to actually get them to come back and stay engaged with the platform. So when you do start figuring out what platform you're using, whether it's Slack or anything else, make sure that your users are vetting it with you. I've actually only see this twice or three times, I think, in my career in community now, like 5 or 6 years, where I've been on a demo where actual community users, super users, people that were intended to use the platform were part of the demo and vetting the solution. I think it's so strong to do that with your users. So that would be the tip.
Okay, I love that. Thank you. Well, we are down to our last few minutes, which is just unbelievable. I can't believe how quickly it flew by. I'm gonna close out with one last question, for the audience. What are some resources that you can recommend all of the community builders watching that can help them get started? And then we're gonna finish up with a rapid fire round. Remco, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, so obviously we're part of a community event now. So I think that's definitely something that we should leverage. There's a bunch of other pretty big communities of community builders like CMX, and Comsor has their own community. I think it's a community club or something. And then obviously there's very large communities out there that don't have anything to do with community building per se, but are just showing best practices of how it's done. I think you can even go like the Reddit route and things like that to basically see how things are moderated and done from a user engagement perspective. So I would probably just go there. And then recently, I think LinkedIn's gone a lot better. There's a lot more community voices, and even also like heads of communities that are sharing a lot of their best practices. So I would definitely also go there.
Fab. And Sarah?
Yeah, something that I really enjoy doing is actually connecting with other community managers, heads of community, and just asking for a 20-30 minute call and connecting and building your professional network. You can find out so much. I think as community people, we can happily easily make time for each other, and I love that. And so it's really great to be able to compare notes with other community managers going through the same pains and the same successes and just learning from each other. I work remotely, and I'm sure a lot of you do, and so it just really helps me feel like I'm part of something. So yeah, that's definitely what I enjoy doing.
100%. And as we get to our last minute, Vera, what about you?
Where I go for resources? Well, obviously everyone here. If I haven't met you, I'd love to meet you out there, people in the audience. But yes, I go to the community here, community led, and so much more. And just follow a lot of newsletters too, as well. So on Substack. So it's been really great, especially when you actually meet people in person. It's been really fantastic and gratifying to say, oh my gosh, I've been following you forever. It feels kind of strange to be in the same room, but it's been really great.
Like meeting a celebrity. And Ritu, what about you?
I think everybody's out here covered pretty much what I would have said. One-on-one conversations with senior leaders, but I think just go to the Led by Community Summit page, look at the agenda. There are so many amazing community builders. Go follow them, go connect with them, read up what they share on LinkedIn and Twitter and their newsletters. Honestly, there is no other university you want to get to, no other resource you want to get to. This is it.
Couldn't agree more, obviously. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for, but I just want to say a resounding thank you to all of you. Truly, we could talk about this for hours and you all have so much to say. Definitely put questions in the chat and see if you have time to answer them. We'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you to everyone tuning in, and back to you, Victoria.
Thank you so much. Thank you all on this panel. Really insightful work, really impactful conversation. Love all the community pings and where to go. Ritu's point, don't go to school, just come right here. This is school for us. I love that. So thank you so much.